Keanu Reeves has captivated audiences for decades with his charm, talent, and enigmatic presence. From Bill and Ted to The Matrix and John Wick, he's become one of Hollywood's most beloved figures. But behind the scenes, Keanu's life has been marked by heartbreak, loss, and unimaginable struggles that the public rarely sees. At 60, the truth about his personal tragedy is finally coming to light, and it's more heart-wrenching than most fans could ever imagine. Keanu Charles Reeves was born on September 2, 1964, in Beirut, Lebanon, to an English mother, Patricia Taylor, and an American father, Samuel Reeves. His early years were anything but stable. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he moved frequently with his mother across Canada, attending multiple schools and often feeling like an outsider. These constant changes instilled in him resilience, but also a sense of isolation that would follow him into adulthood. As a child, Keanu was shy and introspective. While other kids were focused on sports or socializing, he found solace in reading, music, and acting. By the time he reached high school, he was drawn to performing arts, participating in stage productions, and developing his craft. However, academic struggles and repeated relocations made his teenage years challenging, and he left high school without graduating. Despite these setbacks, Keanu was determined to pursue a career in acting. The early 1980s were pivotal. Keanu landed small roles in television shows and Canadian films, but the journey was far from easy. Rejection was constant, and he often had to work odd jobs to support himself. These formative struggles shaped the compassionate and humble personality fans admire today. He became someone who, despite fame, never forgot what it was like to struggle and feel overlooked. Tragedy struck early in his personal life as well. In 1993, Keanu's girlfriend, Jennifer Syme, gave birth to a daughter who was stillborn. The loss devastated him. Friends described him as heartbroken and inconsolable, struggling to come to terms with a grief that few could understand. This heartbreak marked the beginning of a period in his life where personal tragedy and professional challenges intersected, reinforcing his reputation as a private and introspective individual despite his rising fame. During this time, his acting career, though steadily gaining traction, was not yet the global phenomenon it would become. He continued to work tirelessly, taking roles in films like Speed, 1994, which would catapult him to international stardom. Even as his career soared, the shadows of loss and personal struggle lingered. Colleagues often spoke of his quiet generosity, humility, and the way he carried his grief privately while maintaining professionalism on set. By the time Keanu Reeves reached his 30s and 40s, he had already endured heartbreak and hardship that most people never face in a lifetime. His early experiences of instability, loss, and isolation shaped not only the man he would become, but also the depth and authenticity he brought to his roles. Behind the action hero, the sci-fi legend, and the viral meme of Sad Keanu was a man who had quietly faced tragedy with resilience and grace. By the mid-1990s, Keanu Reeves had cemented himself as one of Hollywood's most bankable stars. His breakout role in Speed, 1994, alongside Sandra Bullock, transformed him into an action hero, and just 5 years later, The Matrix, 1999, would redefine his career and the science fiction genre itself. Keanu suddenly became a household name across the globe, with studios eager to cast him in blockbuster roles. On the surface, he appeared to be living the dream, fame, fortune, and success beyond measure. But beneath that image, Keanu's personal life was unraveling in ways far more painful than anyone realized. It was around this period that Keanu entered a serious relationship with actress Jennifer Syme. The two shared a deep connection, and in 1999, they were overjoyed to learn they were expecting their first child. But tragedy struck in December of that year when their daughter, Ava Archer Syme Reeves, was stillborn. The loss was devastating. Keanu, who was known for his quiet and introspective nature, retreated further into himself, grieving privately. while still showing up for his professional commitments. The heartbreak didn't end there. In 2001, just 2 years after the loss of their child, Jennifer Syme died in a tragic car accident in Los Angeles. For Keanu, the pain was indescribable. He had not only lost his child, but also the woman he had once considered building a family with. Friends later described him as emotionally shattered, carrying grief that never fully healed. Unlike many celebrities who seek the spotlight in times of crisis, Keanu did the opposite. He withdrew, living quietly and immersing himself in his work. Hollywood, meanwhile, continued to demand his presence. The Matrix sequels, released in 2003, kept him at the forefront of the industry. Yet those who worked with him often commented on his quiet sadness. Behind the scenes, he was known for small, humble acts of kindness, giving up his seat on the subway, chatting with fans, or quietly donating large sums to children's hospitals and cancer research. Many of these charitable acts went unpublicized, only later revealed by those who had witnessed them. His generosity seemed to come from a place of deep empathy, shaped by the tragedies he had endured. Keanu's reputation as the nicest man in Hollywood grew, but it wasn't just about kindness, it was about resilience. Despite being dealt one heartbreaking blow after another, he continued to push forward. Still, his grief followed him everywhere. In interviews, he would occasionally speak of Jennifer and their daughter with heartbreaking honesty, admitting that grief is something that never goes away. What made Keanu unique was how he chose to carry that pain. Instead of allowing it to harden him, he transformed it into compassion. He treated castmates with warmth, treated crew members as equals, and carried himself with humility despite his enormous success. While many Hollywood stars fell into scandals, arrogance, or excess, Keanu remained grounded, shaped by a lifetime of struggle. By the time he entered his 50s, he had become something of a paradox, one of the world's most famous actors, yet also one of its most solitary figures. His public life was full of blockbuster premieres and red carpets, but his private life remained marked by loneliness and loss. Keanu Reeves was admired not only for his films, but also for his ability to endure tragedy with quiet grace. At 60, his story isn't just one of Hollywood stardom. It's the story of a man who has lived through unimaginable heartbreak and continues to carry himself with kindness in a world that has often given him pain. Away from the cameras, Keanu Reeves' life has often been marked by profound grief and hardship. Unlike the glamorous image associated with Hollywood stardom, his journey has been filled with moments of deep sorrow that shaped the man he became. In the late 1990s, Reeves entered a serious relationship with actress Jennifer Syme. Their bond was strong, and in 1999, the couple was expecting their first child. Tragically, their daughter was stillborn at 8 months, a devastating loss that shattered both parents. The grief placed enormous strain on their relationship, and the couple eventually separated. But Reeves remained deeply connected to Syme, even after their breakup. In 2001, just 2 years after their loss, Jennifer was killed in a car accident at the age of 28. Keanu, who was filming The Matrix Reloaded at the time, was left reeling. Friends recall that he carried the weight of both tragedies in silence, rarely speaking publicly about the pain. These personal heartbreaks were not isolated incidents. Reeves had already endured tragedy earlier in life. His father abandoned the family when Keanu was only 3 years old, leaving his mother to raise him and his siblings largely on her own. His younger sister, Kim, was later diagnosed with leukemia, and Reeves spent years by her side, even putting parts of his career on hold to support her through treatments. His devotion to Kim highlighted his quiet loyalty and strength, but it also meant living with the constant fear of loss. Despite his immense success, Reeves avoided the traditional Hollywood lifestyle. He never sought luxury mansions or flashy cars. Instead, he lived modestly, often spotted riding the subway, talking with strangers, or quietly donating large sums of money to hospitals and charities. Insiders say these choices were deeply tied to his grief. Having lost so much, he valued people over possessions, presence over fame. Close friends describe him as a man who laughs easily, but also drifts into moments of quiet reflection. He has admitted in interviews that grief never truly leaves. It just changes shape. Grief and loss, they never go away, he once said. They stay with you. These words offered rare insight into the depth of his suffering. By the time he turned 60, Reeves had become both a global superstar and a symbol of resilience. Yet his personal tragedies remained a defining part of his story. For many fans, it is this mixture of vulnerability and strength that makes him so beloved. He is not simply an action hero on the big screen, but a man who endured unimaginable pain and continued to move forward with compassion and humility. Keanu Reeves' story could have ended in despair. After all the heartbreak, the abandonment by his father, the stillbirth of his daughter, the tragic death of Jennifer Syme, and the ongoing battle of his sister Kim's illness, few would have blamed him if he had withdrawn from the world entirely. Yet, what makes Reeves's life remarkable is not the tragedies he endured, but the way he transformed his pain into empathy, resilience, and kindness. Instead of allowing grief to harden him, Reeves embraced compassion as his armor. On film sets, crew members often tell stories of his generosity. He has been known to quietly hand out bonuses to stunt teams, recognizing their hard work and the risks they take. When working on the Matrix films, he reportedly gave away millions of dollars from his own salary to the special effects and costume departments so they could continue their work at the highest level. For Reeves, it was never about ego or credit. It was about fairness, gratitude, and respect for those who often go unnoticed. Even in his public life, Reeves' humility set him apart. He famously took the subway in New York, giving up his seat for strangers without fanfare. He was photographed sitting on park benches, eating lunch alone, completely detached from Hollywood's culture of excess. These simple moments became symbolic of who he was, a superstar who never acted like one. To his fans, Reeves became the embodiment of authenticity, someone who proved that fame and kindness could coexist. Professionally, his career went through ups and downs. After early hits like Speed and The Matrix, Reeves faced periods of stagnation, with critics writing him off as a fading star. But resilience is part of his DNA. In 2014, he reinvented himself with the role of John Wick, a retired hitman seeking vengeance after the death of his beloved dog, a story that in many ways paralleled his own grief. Audiences connected deeply with the character, and Reeves's raw emotional performance catapulted him back into the Hollywood spotlight. John Wick didn't just revive his career, it became a cultural phenomenon, cementing him as an icon once more. Yet, even with renewed fame, Reeves never abandoned his principles. He continued donating to children's hospitals, cancer research, and other causes, often anonymously. Reports suggest he even funds foundations quietly without attaching his name to the contributions. His philosophy is simple: true kindness doesn't require recognition. As Reeves turned 60, the tragedies of his past remained part of his identity, but they no longer defined him. Instead, he became a symbol of endurance and humanity in an industry often criticized for its lack of both. His life stands as proof that one can suffer immense pain, yet still choose to move forward with grace, dignity, and compassion. The tragedy of Keanu Reeves is heartbreaking, but his resilience is inspiring. He reminds us that life's darkest moments can be endured, and even in the face of unimaginable loss, kindness can prevail. Reeves' legacy is not just his films. It's the example he sets of how to survive, rebuild, and live with an open heart.